All right, my friends, welcome to week 13, or the lucky four-leaf clover. Anybody know why I did the four-leaf clover? Not unlucky 13, good, although that could work. Only 4 lectures left. Aww. That should either be a yay or a I'm not sure which, okay? It's rapidly approaching. Here's what I'd like to say to you, right? And if you don't know this, you should. If you are not passing, what does it take to pass this class? What do you have to pass? 70%, okay, on everything submitted. So if you're not in a passing, I'm not looking at anyone specifically, just looking around and looking online, because there are students all over that are not in the position to be passing right now. Is it too late at this point? No, but it's going to quickly become too late if you're not there, okay? So focus in. So a couple topics related to just the end of the semester, but first, I just need to say this because it seems like I get more of this after every lab test. I wake up in the morning and people are reporting issues to me with my IT lab. Who's your first line of support with my IT lab? Sarah knows it, but I'm not hearing it from you. Who's your first line of support? Yeah, so I get it. It's easier to email me, and I wake up to a drudge of emails saying this and this and this didn't work. But I'm going to tell you, if you email them, I'm much more likely to work with you on due dates if I can, if you've done the step of contacting them, because part of what you paid for is support, okay? All right, so let's talk about this. So that's the first thing. Just note that in your notes. My IT lab, they are your support from here on out. We only have really one more thing, well, 2. We have a final in my IT lab, and we have access. Which, by the way, before I go on to the next one, with access, for those Mac users, you're not going to be able to run access on Macs. Again, what was the feature I showed you how to use? VirtualBox, very good, VirtualBox, so that's coming. So I've had a couple of people ask me, so I just want to say, right, so let's roll the calendar forward to the end of the semester, right? So your last classwork will be due the 12th, and your final will be due the 16th at midnight. And anybody remember when I said I'd release it? A couple weeks, and as soon as we finish chapter 13, then I will release it, okay? But here's what I want you to know, and people have been asking me, when is the last point I can submit late work? What do you think? No, it almost became the 12th, but I decided to make it to the 16th. So you have until the night of the 16th to put that in your notes to submit late work. And that is also the last time you can ask me to use the late points removed process. But here's what I would say to you. Don't wait till then, okay? But that is the absolute last time you can use that feature in our class, okay? So not only is it the final night, you can do the final is due that night, but also late work submitted and late points returned used. Okay? Questions about that? Remember, my IT lab is a place you're going to take that quiz, and then just like the My IT Lab assessments, you will post your print screen into Canvas. I do remember things. I'm not sure why. My brain just went, oh, what? Okay. All right, any questions about that? All right, so I still have a couple of folks challenged, which is okay, with this whole shared with Rio and shared with everyone. For some reason, I'm still having some students that this... So, like, let's just say this. How about if you're doing the late points removed? What folder should that go into? Yeah, shared with Rio, right? And if you put it in there and you give me a link, and that's really the way it works, right? You create the spreadsheet that tracks how many of your trainings or other Code Academy stuff you've done. Put it in the shared with Rio. Get the link from the pop-out, and you can either, when you're submitting late work or in an email, which, by the way, how should you be emailing me? To Canvas. You're rocking it over there. That's awesome, okay? And then the shared with Rio, I'm sorry, shared with everyone is for everyone, right? That's really your hands-on stuff, okay? So please, 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 when I see you sharing stuff and I get emails about stuff, that means you haven't done it correctly, okay? Even though we're at the end of the semester, I still want, because we have things, really important things coming up. All right, any questions about that stuff? All right, so let's get into, that's the class topic. So now our major topic for the day, and this is going to be a funny heading, but what happens? So put that as your major heading today. So what happens when you type facebook.com into the address bar? I messed that up. Into the address bar. By the way, what is the address bar? Is it a place you go to have drinks and give everybody your address? Nice, right? I got your attention, right? What is the address bar? Let me, and this is a real thing. This is a real thing. Some people, when I say address bar, they think that is the address bar. Is that the address bar? What is that? What's a search bar? Right? So that's where you go to search. At a bar, you go to search at. No. Well, it might be, but not in this case, okay? So what I'm really talking about is right here, right? When I type in facebook.com, what happens? Any of you have any idea before this lecture what happens? Oh my God, Sarah's on it. So it does a request. And actually, we're going to go through this. So Sarah knows some of it. Sarah, how'd you learn this stuff? Just somewhere. Have any of you ever wondered what happens? No. How many of you think it's just instantaneous? Boom, you type in something, it comes back. Now that's partly based on what? Your speed of your internet, right? So today we're going to break this down. This is our whole goal for today, is to talk about what happens when you do that, right? So what happens when you type facebook.com. By the way, this would be true for any domain. I'm just using Facebook for a couple of reasons, of which we'll talk about. So first, let's start here. A URL, a uniform resource locator. So anytime you type in a website like Facebook, by the way, what do we also call that? Web address. By the way, what's the difference between a web address and a website? Good, so the address is the link to the site, and the site is all the pages that make up that site, okay? So let's break this down by its components. First is the protocol, and we talked about protocol last week. So there's this thing, HTTP, and we call this whack whack is the way we talk about it. And then there's this thing called a subdomain, you know, and it's called www. But let me ask you this, and I'm actually going to pull up my least favorite browser right now, which is Internet Explorer, which, by the way, you should, even the government says don't use Internet Explorer, okay? I mean, really, if the government's saying it, everybody's been saying it for a while, it's probably true, right? So how come I don't do that? How come I don't do www.facebook.com? Facebook. How come I don't do that anymore? Yeah, the browser figures it out for me. The browser knows, as default, I'm going to use this protocol called HTTP. It knows even if I give it the www or not. Have you noticed this lately? This www part is dropped from most websites, and it's not that it's dropped. It's that as websites, we figured out how to just make it go to the website no matter what you type as far as the subdomain goes, where we want it to go, okay? So going back here to my URL, right? So the URL is the protocol, the subdomain, and then the domain. So these are the two pieces we're going to spend a little time talking about. The domain name and the TLD, the top level domain, okay? So how important to a business is this domain name part, you think? Really important? Kind of important? In today's world, how important is this name? Yeah, I'm kind of leading you to the answer, especially for online companies, but even for offline companies that sell their products not mediated through the web. This is still an important thing to do. But as a new company, are you going to have to register a name for your business? And do you think something like simple as a Google going to be available to you anymore? No. Okay, and actually we're going to qualify that. It depends on what you use for the top level domain, the last part. Like .com is by far the most common, but anybody know any other top level domain names? .org, which means organization. .edu for education, .net for networks of people, .golf, .gov, yeah, .gov for sure, right? So within the top level, then you have different options as far as the length of that name, but in general, shorter is better, right? Because can you imagine when you're trying to remember a website that you saw a commercial of? Is it harder to remember gogetmyford.com or just ford.com? Yeah, ford.com, right? Okay, so can anybody get these domains? Absolutely. So one of the things I want you all to do is I want you to look up your name. Okay, now anybody know a website you could do this at? Where? Google is actually, Google recently got into the domain name business, but they're not a big player. Anybody know another one possibly associated with the Super Bowl? GoDaddy. Now, GoDaddy is my least favorite domain registrar. You know why? Because their commercials are a bit sexist, and I'm just not into that, right? So I'm going to use one called Enom, right? ENOME.com. And I want you to just when you do your notes to do this. So if I was to look up, let's say, my name, right? So I'm going to go into here. It's going to give me an option. I'm going to type in Rio Waller. Now, notice I didn't give it the what. Hopefully by now you're learning this. What's the last part of a domain name? It's called a top level TLD, top level domain. So the reason I do that is when I hit go, it's going to search all the domains within its privy that I could have access to, right? So look at this, .family, .live, .co, right? So these are all top level domains associated with this, but look at what it gave me, riowaller.com, .rocks. That's good marketing, right? Because I automatically want it. I'm like, yeah, I totally rock, right? I really want that. But if we scroll down right here, right? Let's see. It doesn't list .com, does it? Ah, it does right there. Why do you think it's on back order? Yeah, who do you think has it? Me. Right? Now these days, right, there is a discussion whether companies that are starting out need to register domains because of social media. Because companies depend on social media as much as they depend on websites these days to promote their businesses, right? But still, this is a reality. Now, turn to the screen. I want to show you, there's an interesting article just the other day about back in the day, some of these domain names like quick.com was one of the first 85 domain names registered, right? And there was a whole fight, by the way, Madonna.com back when domains first started being a reality. Because do you think Madonna.com was owned by the Madonna that we all know? No, somebody grabbed it up as soon as you could start registering domains, and then they went to Madonna and said, we will sell that domain to you. And Madonna's like, hello, I'm Madonna, right? I'm not buying that. I own the trademark Madonna. By the way, they went to court. Who do you think won? No, Madonna did, because she had a pre-existing copyright or trademark of that, okay? So let's go back here, all right? So before we go, I do want to show you this. Look at the most expensive domain names, right, ever sold. So insurance.com was sold for $35.6 million, right? Vacation rentals, $35 million. Sex.com, 14 million, really important, right? Porn.com, a 9.5 million, right? Now look at this, FB.com. How come we don't all go to FB.com when we want to go to Facebook? Because it would make sense really that we would, because it's a smaller domain, but why don't we? Because Facebook.com is like imprinted on our brains, right? And so it just didn't, you know, but they bought it. Look at this, $8.5 million they bought that. So these things are worth good money, right? And in the day when you could first register domains, people would do this, and I want you to have this in your notes. It's called Cybersquatting. And they would just go register domain names with the hope that somebody might want them. This was a true thing. It happened all the time. Now, I was part of my past was I ran an ISP, Internet Service Provider, and we, through our registry system, owned coffee.com. By the way, how popular do you think coffee.com was as a domain? Incredibly. By the way, who owned it? How many know of a little company called Pete's Coffee? You know Pete's? Awesome coffee, by the way, okay? So I would get offers almost weekly, sometimes daily, offering me millions of dollars for coffee.com. And I'd have to say, I don't own it, I only register it. Boy, I tell you, there were a couple times I was like, I'd love to have that money, though. That'd be wonderful, right? So beer.com, you know, for our 7 million, and on and on and on. So this is a real thing that happens. But here's really, what was the one you just saw? Oh, yeah, marijuana.com. Look who bought it, Weed Maps. Okay? For those of you, I shouldn't know, but I do. What Weed Maps is when you want to find weed from dispensaries generally, not illegally. Although, who knows these days, right? So 4.2 million for weed.com, candy.com 3 million. So these are sizable purchases for companies, which tells you the importance of it, okay? But here's really what I want to show you is that this domain name, really? Oh, as a reminder, before I jump in, matter of fact, let me jump back maybe. So what happens here is when you request, and I'll go back to the other slide in a second, when you request, and this example shows howstuffworks.com, but you as the client. So in this, and put this in your notes, this is what we call a client-server conversation, okay? So when you as the client request a website, and really it's not necessarily you, it's your browser doing this, what it does is at first says, I need directions to this website. And so what it does is it asks something called a DNS server. DNS means, write it down, domain name system. Because here's the reality, is that the internet runs over TCP/IP. Websites really are at addresses, or IP addresses. We had to create this system outside of the internet's native protocol because nobody's going to remember, I want to go to 192.168.what.what. Nobody remembers that, but people will remember a name like this, okay? So why do we need DNS? Because the internet really speaks TCP/IP, and humans speak domain names, okay? So we laid upon the internet this system of doing this. But this is honestly the way it works. If I'm at this station here on campus, I'm using a client-server network to ask for the domain, but really what I'm asking for is what's that IP address? And this is what happens. My computer asks the first DNS server in its chain, do you have that address? And it says, no, I don't have it in my cache. Go over here and look on that server. And then that server had it. That server said, yeah, that address is 70425142. That comes all the way back. And then this computer goes then to that server where that website is hosted. Okay? Let me slow down. Are you with me? So why do we need DNS? Why do we need this system DNS? Perfect. The internet speaks with TCP/IP. Humans want domain names. We remember those. Remember how valuable they were in this discussion I was talking about, right? So let me actually, before I go there, and this was a slide I had, remind you about this. And we showed a little different slide last time. But when you're requesting anything, whether it be on your home network or across the internet, this is what happens. Your request gets broken into these packets. So when I type facebook.com, it generates a series of packets that get sent through the network in different paths that end up in the ultimate location. So this is packet switching TCP/IP over the internet and over your home networks. Okay? So when I go back to this slide right here where I was showing you this process, this request, all of these requests ultimately are just packets that get sent through the internet from client to server and then back to client again. You guys with me? Are you with me so far? Just making sure, okay? Because we're going to keep going from this because I actually wanted to show you the reality of this on our campus. So as an example, in my unfavorite when I type in facebook.com, do you think, and by the way, there is a DNS server here on campus, do you think it knows the IP address for facebook.com? It should, because anytime anyone on this campus asks for facebook.com, it goes to find the IP. And you think I'm the first person today that went to facebook.com on this campus? Oh God, no, right? But let's say I go to a website in China that nobody has been to on this campus, then it's got to go through that search, okay? But here's also what I want to show you. I'm going to drop into command line on Windows, and I'm going to type a command, and just go to the screen real quick, Sarah. I'm going to type facebook.com, and the command I'm typing is called ping, and ping says, hey, are you there, are you there, are you there? So when I type ping Facebook, I get this. Ping says, yes, I'm there, and gives me an IP address. You with me? So you can see it, 66.220.158.68. So I can do this fun little thing because I'm in command line that says mark because I don't want to have to remember it. I'm going to hit enter. And now, what would happen if I did that? What would happen if I typed the IP into the browser? Where is it going to take me? It's going to take me to Facebook. Because the domain name system is only for who? Humans, right? Because humans aren't going to remember IP addresses. Are you with me? So this is what I'm talking about, that these IP addresses, this is a real thing, right? And you can, by the way, it might be kind of interesting, and let's do it and see what it says. How about if I ping fb.com? Would that be the same IP as the one above it? Now, in this case, it happened to be, but guess what? I did this yesterday, and it was different. Why would that be? Because when I'm sitting in California and I do a ping of facebook.com, I'm going to get the server closest to me. If you're in Europe and you do that same command, Facebook is going to have a server setting closer to you than the one I have closest to me. Because this is what we call load balancing. Because believe me, imagine how many servers, and you're going to watch a video at the end of today's lecture about Facebook servers, right? Because imagine how many servers it takes to run facebook.com. By the way, the statistic lately, I think, is 1 in 6 people. Because in the video, which is a little older, it's 1 in 7. It's 1 in 6 people are on Facebook. By the way, who's leaving Facebook in big time these days? Who's leaving Facebook? The younger crowd, because all the older crowd got on Facebook. And now the kids don't want the parents to see what they do, so they go to other places like Snapchat, right? Tumblr, Instagram, right? So even though Facebook is popular, there are still some people kind of like done with it because of what's... And by the way, Facebook released a new feature today called Live, so that you can then watch what your friends are doing live. I'm not sure I want that, right? It's enough to see their post. Okay, so let's go back here. So let me go back to my... So do you get now the idea of DNS? Do you get that? Domain name system. So that is a system we had to lay upon the internet so that we could have domains work, right? So once you request a website, there's this conversation that happens between you, the client, your computer, your browser, really, and that server where that thing is hosted. And this is called the HTTP process, so the protocol. Remember me breaking down the URL? The first part was the protocol. The protocol is HTTP. So when you request something, you send over to the server a request, and it has these headers on it, and what comes back is a response. But this is so, so important, okay? So most people think, and by the way, it's even called a browser. In your notes, it really should be called something else. Anybody have an idea if we were really to give the name that it is? Because a browser indicates what? Like I'm window browsing, I'm looking at stuff. This is a completely wrong name for what it does. It really is, this goes in your notes, a gatherer. So really your browser as you know it is gathering up all this information, all this content to deliver back to you that web page as it exists as you're looking at it. And I'm going to prove this to you. Because telling you is one thing, showing you hopefully is another. So instead of browser, we should be calling it gatherer. It's a web gatherer, okay? Because through the HTTP request, this protocol, we ask the server, send me what I need to see facebook.com, okay? Now, there's going to be a reason I'm going to show you this in Internet Explorer today. Is for this reason, because Internet Explorer allows you to do something in its nature unsafe. You know what browsing history is? Yeah? Have you heard of cache, temporary internet files? Okay, so let me show you what I can do. I can go to settings, I can go to view files, and as of right now, I haven't really done anything today, there's 133 items. By the way, how many items, if you think you did something similar, do you think is in your cache on your browser? Might be kind of interesting to go find out, okay? So I can actually tell it through the browser. I can do this. I'm going to do Control-A. I'm going to delete all those, okay? So there's nothing setting in my cache right now. So when I type, and let's just do a different one. Let's type fresnocitycollege.edu. Okay? By the way, that is a domain, right? And when it requests, it goes to the server, and what's going to come back to me is all the content that needed to create that website in front of me. How many pieces of information do you think flowed back to me, or my browser, my gatherer brought? 113, that's your guess. It's actually a really good guess. Right now, let's just refresh it, 61. So every piece of this, like a JPEG file, and look at this, what kind of file is that? What's the extension on that file? JavaScript, right? So everything you need to look at this web page is brought back to you through what process? Let me say it one more time. Everything you need to look at this web page is brought to you, gathered to you through what process? The HTTP process, okay? Now, I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to erase all this because I want to do Facebook. So go to the screen real quick, right? So now I'm going to go to facebook.com. Boom. Uh-oh, there it goes. It worked. Now, more or less files going to Facebook than going to Fresno City? What's your guess? More or less? How many say more? More? Let's see. 45. Now that's less, but that's because why? Yeah, what difference does it make when I do this? Uh-oh, makes a big difference when I give it the right password, okay? That makes a big difference. Bam. By the way, I run a huge risk right now going into Facebook, don't I? Right? Because you never know what your friends will, you know, and by the way, those are the friends I typically block, right? I'm like, I don't want to see that stuff. Now, what's your guess for how many more content files I got in my local system when I did that? Oh wow, thousands is a big number, but it's big. It's bigger than what we had before. 302. Now, that's just, again, remember, that's delivered to me through HTTP into my local computer. Now, the bad thing is what? The bad thing is Internet Explorer lets me see those files. And it not only lets me see them, look at this, it shows me where they're at. That is inherently insecure. Because look at, and by the way, look at Chrome. To get that same look, I have to do something called about.cache. And it shows me a list of files, but it doesn't show me their location. So if I mean you harm, if I want to use some of this browsing history to find out things about you, this is not in clear sight. In which browser? Which browser are we looking at here? Chrome. And in Internet Explorer it is, which is why you should all stop using Internet Explorer. And not only should you stop, you should tell everyone you know to stop using it. Because of some of the reasons, I'm just pointing out a few about what it makes you insecure. Are you with me? Okay, so this is the HTTP response right here, right? Uh-oh, come on. I'm starting to load up too much. So this is what happens. This is the content that we're talking about that you can see in plain sight when you're in Internet Explorer, but not when you're in Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, by the way. It protects you, right? And this is just an example, a little more of an example of the HTTP. What flows back to you is all this content that comes to you, right? And by the way, what comes to you is these HTML files, these CSS files, these JavaScript files, these images files, all this stuff you've been learning about in Code Academy, okay? So here is what happens. So for a second now, before I go into this, what do you think Facebook did to figure out what to deliver to my news feed? What do you think they did? Is there some kind of logic that Facebook goes through to deliver to me my news feed? What do you think that logic is? What do you think they think about? Or what do you think they consider? Yeah, so what I've clicked on, by the way, I have, I think now 600 people on Facebook. Do all of them show up in my feed? Oh no, only the people I top interface with. If somebody adds me or I add them as a friend, they'll show up for a little while, but if I don't interact with them within a certain amount of time, I don't get their feeds anymore. Why does Facebook do that? Why does Facebook go through and filter what's in there? Make the content more interesting is the key, because they want you to hang out. Because how does Facebook earn their money? Right here, right over here, right over here, right over here. And now inside of here, look at this. I get ads in my news feed. That drives me nuts. By the way, not that different than this little site right here as well, right? How does Google make its money? 99% of Google's money comes from, so let's say I'm searching for boots. I should do cat boots, but who paid to be there? Zappos, Boot Campaign, these people paid to be there. By the way, is it worth the money these folks paid to be there? Yeah. Oh, God, yes. I've worked with businesses that when we get, and by the way, you have to compete against other people to get there. Again, when you go to your, here's what I want you to keep in mind. This is what I'm trying to explain to you right here. When you go to Facebook.com, when you go to Google.com, and you get this, there is a huge amount of stuff that happens on the back end. That server, there's database servers, there's primary servers, there's web servers. All of these things make a decision about what to send to you. And they make it in a split second. As a matter of fact, the average request for any major site is about 1,000 different things happen before it gets to you. And doesn't it feel instantaneous? Holy mac, right? But it behooves them to try to figure out what you like, right? To try to keep you hanging out there. And some people do a really good job of hanging out there. Have you noticed some of your friends are on Facebook all the time? You're like, get a life, right? And Facebook's like, yeah, come on, we want you, right? So here's what I want you to, here's kind of the point I'm trying to make, is that next time you go to Facebook or somewhere else, think about all the stuff that had to happen for that information to come through to you. Through the HTTP process. And all this stuff that happens is stuff that you've at least been introduced to from a beginning standpoint, which is this HTML5. So here's what I wanted to kind of also, let me see, is there another? Oh yeah, I'll come to that last. What I want to show you is this. So when we talk about programming languages and we talk about what happens, look at this. How does Google, YouTube, Facebook, how do these websites, there's two things. You all have been learning what we call front end. So in your notes, put front end. The front end is what you see when you look at a website, what comes rendered to you through all those processes. But what they use to create all that is called the back end. And on the back end, right, so JavaScript, look at this. Look how many websites use JavaScript on the front end. Every one of them. This is why JavaScript is so good to know. But look on the back end. What are we using on the back end? Well, Google is using C, C++, Java, not JavaScript. It's different. Python and Go. Well, here on campus, we teach Java, we teach Go, we teach C++, we do teach Python. But look, also what's starting to show up on the server side? JavaScript. This is what's making JavaScript so amazingly powerful right now, is not only is it running on the client side, on the front end. Did you get the terms front end, and what's the other one? Back end, right? So what's running on the back end for these big companies is a lot of different things, a lot of PHP. That's what Facebook is running. Google is running a variety of stuff. Amazon is running Java, right? And you can look, but again, this is back end. Everybody's using JavaScript on the front end. Are you guys with me? Does this make sense? Right? Does it start to kind of go, wow, right? So think about the importance of at least having some of this skill on board. And here's the next thing we're all going to start talking about, which is databases. Because can you imagine that Facebook could deliver all that without having an organized information of all your likes, all your clicks, all your shares? They track every bit of that to know, right? And they have to track it in these databases. And you all are going to learn some database in the next couple of weeks, okay? So that's what I wanted to say about the client server, right? We talked about last week. And by the way, my machine, this was the lecture, right, where my machine died, my Mac died last week. Epic fail, I had to reload it. It was fun. It was really interesting. But we were talking about programming languages at that point, and I wanted to at least show you, right, the difference between the client and the server side of programming languages. Because next semester, I teach the client side with JavaScript. So the last slide I have here, and it's kind of interesting to look at, is when we talk about operating systems, and we were talking about those servers, right? On the desktop, and just this gives you a comparison, most people are still using Windows. Although Mac's coming up, Linux is still very small. On the server side, though, Windows doesn't dominate nearly as much. We have Linux, and we have Unix, and we have other things that run on the server side, right? And these days, and the reason is that it's cheaper. You can run a Linux, Unix server so much cheaper than you can run Windows, and they're generally faster. So, and it just gives you the comparison, right, of the other ones. But this is really the one I wanted you to see. So what's running the OSs on the servers? Majority? Is it still Windows? It's in a tight race with Linux. So the most popular operating systems on the server side are listed on there. Okay? All right. So you all, for the last thing, and maybe we'll do it after this, or you can do it on your own, is I'm going to have you watch about an 8-minute video about Facebook servers, because it really is interesting to see how they do what they do, because it really is fairly amazing how many servers they put up. And now we have what's called server farms, where it's just huge data centers that just are taking up a huge amount of space, and now they're trying to make them environmentally conscious, so they're trying to make them more solar. But these data centers are a reality all over the world. They're trying to locate them in optical spots as far as connection goes and as far as resources go. Okay? All right. Any questions about today? What'd you get from today? What'd you learn from today? Anything? Look at your notes. What'd you get from today? What will you walk away understanding a little better? Huh? You need to learn JavaScript. That's a good thing to walk away with. How about the browser? From now on, might you think about it differently? Might you call it a what from now on? A gatherer. And be aware that all that stuff is coming to your computer. And by the way, you should periodically clean that cache out, because it will also make your browser run faster. Okay? So because what happens is it has to look through those files. Because you ever notice sometimes the first time you go to a website it's slow, but the second time you go to it it's faster? That's because of the cache. The cache is sitting there. A lot of those files just gets loaded up. Okay? All right, let's say goodbye.